start this section. Okay, so hello, Krishna, is clear about the presentation of your work? Is that clear or do you need any?
Yeah. Profe, lo siento por hablar en español, pero
Mhm.
para que
Yes,
sea
yes.
más claro,
Sí,
tengo
sí.
dudas con la última evaluación, la que es en grupo.
Ah, ok, we'll get there. We'll get, sí, ya llegamos ahí. Do
Ah,
not
ya, ok.
worry. Do not worry. Y aquí era el comienzo. So we started with the integration of skills so that reading can help us develop the skills of our students. So not only speaking and listening, but also reading and writing. And that is why you could watch other videos depending on the age of students. You can develop different activities and different skills. So for example, students listen, then they write, they speak, eventually they read. So they develop all of the skills. And we said that if we develop the integrated skills, we have a more natural approach to learning a language. And that's why we were talking about that in your activities. Consequently, this activity for a final project, yes, will be a short activity based on children's literature. Remember, there is a method based on literature. You're going to see this also in second year when you see other methods within the communicative language approach. And it's a way in which we can teach English to elementary school students and help them develop the skills. Yes? They develop skills, they develop language, and they can do many more activities related also to their lives in schools. Yes, and you saw, for example, the option of when you presented your oral exposition, when you talked about doing some open air activities as after reading, just because they also your activities in the classroom can be related to the activities in schools, in the whole school. So now you start thinking, how do you connect your activities to the lives of the school, of your schools? And therefore, there are many ideas that you can develop. Entonces, up to here. So in this section, you can see that you need to choose, you can choose a strategy to transmit simple literary narrations. And in that way, you can choose, for example, just a read aloud, an interactive read aloud. So there are different kinds of read alouds. And you have seen different examples. Or storytelling with small objects, Professora Carla showed us in class. Later, so the group is choosing this. Later, we put together all of the different elements that we learned in different classes along the weeks during the semester, so that you can use those elements in your activity. So for example, you need your resources, your materials. We have talked about that. For example, when we talked about choosing objects to represent different characters or different settings. So you choose the materials. Then you apply the reading strategies that we talked about at the beginning of the semester, when we talked about pre-reading. Do you remember Snoopy? Pre-reading, while reading, and after reading strategies, just to help your students understand the reading. And here, in extra materials, you have Snoopy. And remember that you talked about this and you developed these ideas very well. So this is already known by you. And you're free. This is your creativity. And you need to develop that section. You're free to choose the strategies. After that, we also applied reading strategies. I'm sorry, elementary techniques. And there, for example, we saw examples when teachers produce the noises that occurred in the story. For example, they knocked at the door and they made noises, or there is rain outside, and so you can pour water, or change your voice, change the pace of reading. According to, those are all techniques that can help you and give a new meaning to the stories. And this is your task number 3. You develop this. So you can go to that task and revise. Then the structure and key elements, and this is a question Vanessa and Paola had. Remember when we talked about the elements of stories. And remember that when you focus on stories, you can choose one of the elements. You can choose characters, for example. You can choose the setting. You can choose the theme. And for example, whenever you thought about for example, the carrot seed has an important theme, an important message to teach children. And so you can focus on that element, yes, on that element of the story. Or you can focus on the structure of the story, whether the story has, do you remember the drawings we did in reference to the different events in the stories? Do you remember? When the stories were changing the pace of events. So you had, for example, a rising graphic organizer. ¿Se acuerdan cuando la historia iba subiendo la tensión y la acción en la historia? ¿Se acuerdan? Y luego era la resolución del problema. Well, that's a structure, and you did this in your task number, if I don't remember wrongly, it's the last task. It's task 5, if I don't remember wrongly, but I will check. So you can use any of those elements to teach your students. So now it's about you to choose which one. ¿Sí? Ustedes tienen que elegir cuál elemento, o si van a hablar de la estructura o de algún elemento. But you're free. You're just free to choose what suits best your story. So for example, remember we had this. So this is task, structure, and key elements of narrations. And here you have a rising kind of conflict, yes? So you have the settings, the characters, the problem, and the rising action. For example, the carrot seed has this structure. So there is a presentation of characters. There is this kid with a family, and he decides to plant a carrot seed. And then everyone said it won't grow. So the action rises. And then the mother came and said, I'm afraid it won't grow. So it continues up. And then the father came, oh, I'm afraid it won't grow. And so on and so forth, until the climax. Yes, the conflict gets to a point in which the boy probably started to think the plant was not going to grow, until then we have the resolution and we see that finally the plant grew. And so there is a resolution of the problem. So you can use this to teach your students if you think this is something they can learn from and they can profit from. Yes, Vanessa and Paola? Okay, so another graphic organizer for the elements of a story can be this one, in which there is no rise in action, no events. This happens first, this happens next, this happens, no. But we have probably
reflections.
a reflection, and you have just a spider, a web graphic organizer in which you reflect about different topics. and you reflect about life, about the future, about the world, about peace and war, about humanity. I don't know. You check the topics about which this speaker in your story, in your poem, is speaking about. Yes, and you write such a graphic organizer, and in this way, students will understand this example, and they will say, "Oh, now we understand. What is which are the main topics, the main themes in this poem." So that is what you need to choose in that section, in that particular section of your activity planning. Okay, so in that case, there is no setting that is more important, or there is no character. But the most important thing is the topic and the reflections that the writer and the speaker want the readers to participate in. So they are inviting you to reflect on something. So that's the most important thing. Okay, wonderful. You realize this. I am sure you thought about it, but you were not sure. ¿Sí? Lo habían pensado, pero sí, porque lo habíamos hablado en un ejemplo. Sí, estaban encaminadas. Pero ahora lo vieron, está en el PowerPoint número 11. But I need to close it, and I cannot close it. So in that PowerPoint, you will find the example. Week 11, PowerPoint 11. Now I need to open again. So in that, so in week 11, you can find this. Okay, someone's coming. Okay, but it doesn't allow me to show you. I had the same problem yesterday, and there is something that is preventing me from showing you the PowerPoint, and I don't know why. I need to close this. Okay. Okay, so hello. Now we are here. We were revising about the activity and the different elements that you are including in your activity plan. So again, you can talk about the structure, as we said, whether there are events that happen one after the other, or if there is some structure that is more cyclical, or if it follows, for example, a spider web graphic organizer as the one we saw minutes ago. And then you think about follow-up activities, and you can include writing activities, and this is important because we are developing all of the skills, but also you can have other activities like, for example, planting seeds or doing some other outdoor activities. Just thinking of the carrot seed, because you already had this idea, and we already mentioned the idea of, for example, planting a seed, and that was a great idea. Okay, so this is the template of that activity plan that we are going to see now in the Word document for you to have a clearer idea. Remember, we did some examples, and we wrote the objectives. Remember, Vanessa and Paola, go back to the examples of writing objectives. We are going to revise this again. Remember, what kind of verbs do I need to use? Let me check. We are going to revise this again. Remember that it is here. Okay, I will rearrange this PowerPoint so you have it at hand. So remember, for language objectives, we need to choose a verb that indicates observable behavior. So it's something that I can observe. ¿sí? Una conducta que sea observable. Therefore, I need verbs like identify, present, describe, explain. Yes, all of them include verbal language, but students can also demonstrate something, mimic, react. So they do something that you can observe. Therefore, do not use these words. Do not. Yes, do not use these verbs. All right? No, forbidden. These verbs imply actions I cannot see. No se pueden observar. Yes, they are actions that refer to feelings, states of mind, thinking, processes. So it's not possible. Yes, it's not possible to observe. Of course, they occur, but they are not observable. That's why do not write this. And in Spanish, it's exactly the same situation. Whenever you're planning in Spanish, you don't use these words either. Yes, because they are actions that we cannot observe. ¿Sí? ¿Está claro, chicas? Los verbos que se pueden observar y los que no. Las acciones. Bien, entonces, okay. Now. All right. Bien. Aquí tenemos otra vez nuestra famosa como una fórmula. Yes, I will never forget this formula. Please pay attention. So you need the functions, okay, the verb, the content. What am I going to teach? So describe, for example, the story characters. La pregunta de Vanessa y Paola. What can we do with the elements, with structure? Okay, this. So you can decide to teach about the story characters or the story setting. Or, yes, describe the story characters using present simple because we are teaching a language. We are teaching English. Therefore, I need one section of the objective, I need to be related to lexicon, vocabulary. This comes from Greek, lexico, we also use the same. And or grammar patterns. Yes, whenever I teach a grammar pattern, a structure in the language, or simply vocabulary, like in this case. Present the story setting by using qualifying adjectives. So I teach something related to vocabulary. So I need the three elements for it to be a language objective. ¿Sí? Esto lo necesito porque es un objetivo de lengua, de lenguaje. Yo estoy enseñando un elemento del lenguaje. Lo mismo pasaría en español, ¿sí? Cuando enseñen lenguaje a los niños de básica. Un elemento del lenguaje. Entonces, no son los objetivos generales. En las bases curriculares vienen objetivos generales, que el niño aprenda a hablar sobre el medio ambiente. Son objetivos generales, pero paso a paso, clase a clase, yo voy desarrollando el conocimiento básico para lograr esos objetivos generales. A veces por eso les comento, aunque no hayan leído las bases curriculares, porque pensamos en el objetivo más general. Y eso es normal, siempre es así. Luego hacemos la transposición hacia lo más pequeño. Lo que hago en esta clase para lograr eso último. Okay, then we have another one that is mimic. En este caso sería una acción que no es lingüística. Pensemos los niños muy pequeños, 5 o 6 años, están recién aprendiendo las letras y a leer y escribir. Therefore, we can have something that is not necessarily related to language. Mimic characters, gestures by using body language related to the story's vocabulary. In one of the stories, you have this objective. One of the stories, the teacher asks the children to do such and such a sound, such and such an action, for example, in interactive reading aloud. So this is what they do, exactly this one. Okay, then these other ones were completed with you in class, in different classes. Explain the story main idea, and Vanessa and Paola may have explain the poem's main message by using specific vocabulary, and there you can focus on the vocabulary to express the message, to express a reflection. Why not? So that is a possibility. Then describe, especially when we use characters, settings, things that are describable. Yes. Estos son, describir es un verbo para los eventos o situaciones que son describibles. Por ejemplo, los personajes. Recuerden que hemos visto historias con monstruos, con alguna característica especial. Los del Dr. Seuss, los cuentos de Dr. Seuss tienen personajes especiales. Yo puedo explotar esta situación de los personajes para describir. Y ahí aprendemos vocabulario relacionado con muchas cosas, ¿verdad? Las características físicas, colores, tamaños y demás. Con Dr. Seuss tenemos muchos de ese ejemplo. Y luego podemos tener identify characteristics of a monster. One of the stories that we watched in videos was about a monster, and we were describing those characteristics. The monster is good, is bad, is funny, it's, I don't know, tall, short, fat, thin, whatever. Yes, whatever you can use. Okay, do you understand now about the objectives?